Alright, Travis Wayne Goodsill. I was going to be going to bed early today. It didn't work out. As I'm still up. This video is discussing Mormons who have left the church and how they behave in exactly the same manner that Mormons do. That's the sad and disturbing part. Those who leave the church and have become popular have a tendency to think that they are on the leadership front of the Mormon exodus. And of course, once you get a little authority, as you suppose, you begin to exercise unrighteous dominion. That's how Mormons and those who leave the church are similar in their behavior. Case in point, New Name Noah. New Name Noah is the popular one who's given us the recordings of the temple text, all the different changes and lots of other stuff as well. He's been interviewed by John DeLynn on his Mormon whatever interview things that he has, Mormon Stories interviews. He did a several-parter for New Name Noah. I don't remember the guy's actual name right now. But he thinks he knows better because of his ability to record the temple text. I'm sorry, New Name Noah, you don't know Mormonism. John DeLynn does not know Mormonism, even though he was a top figure who was critical of the church. And D. Michael Quinn, who is doing great with his trilogy books on Mormonism, Corporate Wealth and Power or something like that, is I think the latest one. But they don't know Mormonism. If you've seen my other videos talking about church history, you understand why I say what I do about D. Michael Quinn, for example. Because D. Michael Quinn got his big start with Mormonism and the magic worldview. I did my research independent of his work. You don't go to secondary author sources to do research. You go to the primary sources to do research. I was taught by D. Michael Quinn himself, so I know how to do it, as well as having had an education at an out of Utah school as to how to do actual research and develop theories for all the various scientific fields. And what I came up with just burned D. Michael Quinn's book to the ground. There was no magic worldview among the Smiths. They used that to get away with what they were doing. D. Michael Quinn does not go into the Freemasonry of the York Rites of the Smiths, with the Knights Templar as the highest ranking, and thus does not go into the Knights Templar research. You have to do all that when you're doing church history research. You can't just stop at, oh, stones. Stones were seen as magic, like crystal balls. Therefore, Joseph Smith believed in magic and witchcraft. No! It's not how research is done. And so, even though he's done great lately exposing the church's corporate finances, his origin story or his origin publications are worthless. They're great for the facts he does obtain, but his conclusions are worthless because he doesn't get into the Knights Templar. Because when you get into the Knights Templar, then you learn, hey, wait a minute, this is where he got Egyptian from. Oh, the learning of the Jews and the language of the Egyptians. The Rosetta Stone, the learning of the Greeks and the language of the Egyptians. This is all part of the research as you discover it. And then there's tons more that needs to be done. So much so that I had to pick a starting point. I can't go back far enough, because even when I started with his parents, Joseph and Lucy, as they got married and moved to Vermont, I still found myself needing to go back in history for a number of things to understand the context that I was working on. For example, Joseph Smith's Jr.'s grandfather, I believe it is, was the one who testified against a couple of women in the Salem witch trials. So the Smith family is anti-witchcraft. So for D. Michael Quinn to say, oh, well, this is all part of the magic world view that they had at that time, and this was common, and he's pulling a Mormon apologist tactic, which is why he got hired by the church in the first place. And no. The student has become the master, D. Michael Quinn. And unfortunately, if you don't know the situation between John Gee and his teacher wrote a whole book bashing on his student. It was awesome. I don't have it readily available to pull off my shelf, it looks like. But, yeah. The teacher ended up doing a whole research book on the Book of Abraham. And so, yeah, New Name Noah responded to my federal judge's rule LDS Mormon Church is guilty. And he is saying, how is the weather in fantasy land? Are you really that delusional, or are you a con artist? Seriously, New Name Noah? I'm one of him. I'm no longer affiliated with the church. And all of a sudden he shows up, not having watched any of my other stuff, not knowing who I am, what I do, clueless. He just comes on to the one video and thinks he knows better and has no clue as to who I am. So shame on you, New Name Noah. You know, go back to the temple and do more recordings. Stay out of the big boys. But yeah, I've seen that. I've tried to reach out to a number of people who have left the church, trying to get communication going back and forth, and none of them, they all refused to respond or make communication. The baker, I can't remember his first name, but the one who left the church to be a part of a Christian organization, and then left that to go to a Jewish organization, last I heard. He has reached out to me, and that was nice, but he didn't really get into social conversation. It was more like, keep it up. Paul Adams allows my comments. I've stopped with his videos. I've not seen really much anything of value from him. I tried to get a part of his FBI or federal lawsuit, but he failed on that one, I guess. There's another guy who talks a lot about Mormonism, but I can't remember if he was a former Mormon or if he's just a Christian who is well familiar with Mormons and culture, because he doesn't know much about Mormons. He always asks questions and talks about news that has come up about Mormons. And then it's me, Jessie. She knows absolutely nothing about the church. She's had to study it all on her own since the missionaries came to her door in December of 2018. And she's been doing a great job trying to inform people of what she's learning. And of course she gets attacked by the Mormon apologists. Bullies. That's all they are. She's has communicated with me, hoping to obtain primary source information, but she's sort of lost interest as her focus has been on Sidney Rigdon writing the Book of Mormon. And I gave that to her, and I guess she didn't like what she found I had found. It's actually an awesome story. You can go to Thinker of Thoughts or Mormon. I think it's Thinker of Thoughts. No, it's not Thinker of Thoughts. That's a different guy. He never. He thinks he's holier than thou. But Mormon Think. That's it. The website Mormon Think. They cover a lot of stuff, and Jesse has referred to them on numerous occasions. He sets up his format very well, presenting the church's counterclaims to the criticisms, but he isn't complete as he thinks he is. There's more to Sidney Rigdon. When you do history research, it's very crucial that when you have different persons that have different events on different timelines, it's important to get the timelines lined up so that you can see that in this month of this year, these events occurred by this and this person, and you go on down. If you've heard about Sidney Rigdon being in Pittsburgh to get the Solomon Spaulding document, manuscript, you'll hear on Mormon Think that he had a post office at the same, or post office box at the same post office that Solomon Spaulding did. And the problem is that they would have never connected with each other, because Sidney Rigdon was there in Pittsburgh and would have obtained the manuscript after Solomon Spaulding died, but then he left and came back. He came back almost, it was a little north of Pittsburgh, not quite to Harmony, Pennsylvania. It was a little south and to the west, which is also important when you're doing church history research, is identifying the locations of everybody's movement and the events that occurred. So when Joseph Smith is working with Martin Harris in Harmony, Pennsylvania, where Sidney Rigdon was, that's important. That's important information to know. And then when you figure things out, then you read over documents, like the very first scriptures in the Doctrine and Covenants by supposedly Joseph Smith Jr. getting chewed out by the Lord for losing the 116 pages. When you realize that the 116 pages were replaced with Senior's dreams about the tree of life, you realize Smith Sr. is the Lord chewing out his son, who sent Joseph with Martin Harris, who was part of the committee of anti-Masons, to Harmony with Joseph to work on the 116 pages, while Smith Sr. stayed at home. So, because he was a master mason in the Cananagua, I can't pronounce it right, down south, where Hiram was in the mason in Palmyra. And so you see that Martin Harris was the money. And in order to get the money, he wanted to be a part of the project. And we can't have him finding out how it's really done, so Joseph knows him. He'd worked for him on his farm. Joseph took him over to Harmony to get him out of the way. So it's those types of things that are crucial in understanding the true history of the LDS Church. And none of the critics do this. None of the people who study church history do this. And now that the September 6th are gone, there really isn't anyone who's doing church history anymore. Everybody's sort of set in their ways, as everything that's out is already out, and that's the way it is. And Mormons either dismiss it or justify it with fallacies, or you're a critic and you say, yeah, this is all true, even though it's a secondary author source who doesn't even reference a primary source. So those are the dilemmas that I've had to deal with, and as a result, I'm all alone. Literally, I'm all alone. I have nobody on my side. I don't have Mormons on my side, obviously, because they shun you if you go against them. You are automatically the spawn of Satan if you dare criticize the church. And critics think they know it all. And they don't. Sorry guys, you don't. And that's the sad part. Because even Thinker of Thoughts, as I trashed on him earlier, he doesn't understand Mormon doctrine. That's crucial in order to criticize the church properly. You don't criticize, as the Tanners did, by using their Christian beliefs to apply them to the Mormon church. You can't do that. No Christian can criticize the church using Christian beliefs. No Jew can criticize the Mormon church for using Jewish beliefs, by using Jewish beliefs. Islam can't criticize the church using Islamic beliefs, etc., etc., etc. In order to properly criticize the Mormon church, you have to be a Mormon, and you have to know the doctrine. You have to know the traditions, the theology, the rituals, the performances, the practices, the myths, the Mormon myths. You've got to know them. You've got to know the people. You've got to know how they think. You've got to know how they act. You've got to know how they believe. And once you do that, then you can say, you guys are jokes. And this is why. Your own scriptures says so. For example, the most famous thing that I've done is using the Book of Mormon to show that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the false Church of Lucifer. You can't do that by Christian beliefs or any other religious beliefs. You can't do it if you got involved with a church, you found out polygamy was practiced, or that Brigham Young was a racist, or that the translation of the Book of Abraham does not have the Hebrew name Abraham in an Egyptian text. For whatever reason, people leave, and they really weren't scholars in Mormonism, and if you are, then you know the theology of Mormonism, that there were two plans of happiness in Moses chapter 4 verse 1 to 4, and you know that agency was Heavenly Father's plan, and taking away agency in order to exalt everyone was Lucifer's plan. Then you look at Mormons and their traditions and their culture, how they're okay with blaming women who get raped and justify having them have the baby and have her give up that baby for adoption. This is where it comes from, is the theology of Mormonism. This is why they do the horrible, evil things that they do, is because they're not knowledgeable with their own scriptures, their own theology, their own doctrine, their own rituals, and the symbolisms behind the rituals, let alone the church history. And the church history is because the church has covered it up. And I've done the video where they don't even know the church history because they weren't a part of it. That was all Joseph Smith and his family, and Sidney Rigdon and Oliver Cowdery. Everybody else was kept out of the loop. And that's why Brigham Young is clueless. And Heber C. Kimball, clueless. Willard Richards, clueless. John Taylor, clueless. Wilford Woodruff, clueless. They weren't a part of the origin. So this is a disturbing trend, as I've witnessed those who leave the church, rather than trying to get a coalition together to band against the church, to help Mormons transition out of the church and help do what the Protect LDS Children did in obtaining petitions to present to the church, and lawsuits, class action lawsuits against the church to get the church to stop things. That's just not done. So well done for the Protect LDS Children movement. I've tried to reach out to him again to get an organization going to have the church stop demanding tithing from children. It's a protectionist racket. But I contacted him just because we shouldn't be demanding money from children. But he's not responded, and obviously he's not doing anything about it. So that's unfortunate. Maybe it's because there was some kind of settlement involved where he had to do a non-disclosure, where the church silenced him for any future things. I hope not. He was supposed to be publishing a book and doing other things to expand on it. I have no idea how those are going. I've not seen anything about it. But that's part of the problem, is John DeLynn got silenced with his excommunication. Jeremy Russell, the CES letter guy, he also got silenced with his excommunication and lawsuit. The woman who got raped at the MTC, silenced after her awesome display in Arizona at that guy's ward. I believe New Name Noah even had that video posted on his site. But again, It's one thing to present documents like Mormon Leaks does. It's another thing to actually do a surgical strike of the crimes that the church is doing, the corruption, the abuses that they're doing. You can't just say, well, I disagree with that based on my beliefs. You have to know the origin from where the church comes from. Their whole religious movement, religious freedom movement. If you don't understand why they're doing that, you're not going to understand how dangerous it is if the church gets away with it with Mike Pence, the vice president. They've been working with him on this. And so if Trump gets ousted, which everybody's sort of wondering if the Senate is actually going to go against Trump, they do have Pence as a backup, but Pence is also a part of it. And so he may also get kicked out at the same time, and if that's the case, the Republicans may not want to get rid of Trump. And if they don't get rid of Trump, we're in total anarchy as we become a monarchy. And it's going to get worse than what we've already seen. That's the church wasn't going to Trump. They were going through Pence this whole time. And it's because of Pence's religious connection. And so, yeah, we cannot allow this religious freedom movement to continue. As an example, religion does not have the right to commit crimes. The First Amendment for freedom of religion is not about allowing a religion to commit crimes. That's what the church is doing. They're using their religion as a front for their criminal organization. That's my lawsuit. That's the whole basis for it. And New Name Noah, shame on you for not doing your research on me and throwing out a little comment here, even to think that I'm a con artist. A con artist? Seriously? You know, I've been posting the website. I think I may have done it on this one. I'm not quite sure. Let's see if I can get to it. No, that's not it. My channel. Okay, federal judges rule LDS Mormon Church is guilty. Show more. Yeah, I put it in there for you, New Name Noah. What the hell is wrong with you? My God. So, yeah, that's sad. You know, he gets a little fame for doing one particular thing, and then they just go off the deep end. They don't do any further. You know, New Name Noah, he's not studying Mormonism anymore. You know, he just, he finds some new stuff. All the churches change their temple text. Well, I'm going to sneak into the temple and record it. Or find somebody who is a Mormon who's doing it for me, and then I'll put his video on my site. However he's doing it. Because I'm sure he's outed himself. So I guess he's not a member anymore. But he'd have to get it from an actual Mormon who's an insider. I mean, come on, guy. I put the link, pacermonitor.com. Unbelievable. So this is what I have to deal with. I'm all alone. I'm in Utah, so I have no regular people to associate with. The only people I really do associate with are no longer at the grocery stores, really, because they have the automated scanners now. I can check out my food myself. And then I guess my credit union. Go say hi to Gabby, although when they ask me to say how my latest visit was, they seem to be wanting to fire the person because I never see them again after I comment about how well they've done. So I hope they're getting transferred to another branch and moving up in the company, but very frustrating. That's the one complaint I had when I went to Google and gave them their stars and commented. But at least there I get to comment. Here you click on like or dislike, and I of course get to shut them down now thanks to YouTube making that change. But I really have nobody. That's the sad part. I am all alone. Not too dissimilar, because I can take comfort in the Book of Mormon. As Nephi, well, he had his family. They followed him. But in the beginning, it was sort of being alone. You know, he couldn't always, cling to the tales of his dad or Sam. But Moroni, alone. And he even has that famous chapter, I am left alone, and I know not whether I will die or whatever. And then Ether, also recording the history of the destruction of his people, which is a theme in the Book of Mormon. That's the Mormon Code playlist that I've got. You guys need to check that out. I figured that out with my understanding of the correct history of the church. Oh well. So this is already 30 minutes, and it's well past my bedtime, and I have no Mountain Dew to keep me going. I've run out, so I'll just end it here. There's no system in place for people to go to for correct information, that they can all join together and collaborate and learn and know how to properly add to. So that's the frustrating part. YouTube was supposed to be something similar to that, but it was more for entertainment rather than communication. Facebook was intended for communication, and that went to hell in a handbasket as they sold our data to Russia, betraying our country. Alright, I think I'm done for the day. Maybe I'll save this and then go to bed. I don't know how blood pressure works. I don't know why they keep referring me to things that are ridiculous. Baby Yoda, okay, great. But it's an old one. I already saw all those songs. If you do want a Baby Yoda one, it's Go to Sleep Baby Yoda. Search for that in YouTube. Go to Sleep Baby Yoda. Awesome. The guy did awesome. Well done. But Amazon, my hell, don't be advertising for the doll way at the end of May. If you're gonna offer it, offer it. If you're not gonna offer it, don't even tempt us with it.